my favorite, right, Kriyas and meditations, because it really is about deconstructing the deconstructing the human species that is out of date, right? So deconstructing basically is about evolutionizing, right? And what we did with this Kriya and this meditation was very evolutionizing, in the way that we're looking at our thoughts, we're looking at our movements, we're looking at our even genetic patterning, and we are deconstructing it, right? It's just through the Kriya, just through the meditations, right? Inviting in the sound current that really doesn't belong to this civilization that we're in. It comes from a different civilization. It comes from a very ancient civilization of, we think of Lemurian Atlantis. So when we invite in this sound current through the Kriya, the meditation, this technology is not belonging to this civilization. It's a pathway. It's almost like it's a door to this other civilization, right? So this practice of our divinity and our spirituality, this is not something that was accomplished in this current civilization. This was something that was accomplished way before, long time ago, right? And it has steadily been prevailing through this current sort of paradigm that we live in. And that's why I love this particular Kriya meditation, because it really is about looking at how we can evolve, right? And how we can see the habits, the patterns, the behavior, the lifestyle, the beliefs, and all the shame. There's so much shame attached to all these habits we had, like the addictions and the obsessions and all these kind of relationship habits and self habits. There's quite a lot of shame associated, where we feel embarrassed, or we feel foolish, or we feel fooled, or we feel tricked or bamboozled, and all these things. We're feeling like shame or shamed of our partner, we're ashamed of ourselves, and even with our behaviors, there's a sense of being shamed. And Yogi Bhajan says shame is same, meaning when the shame is like when we're not evolving, meaning we keep repeating. And we all know in our history that we keep repeating things, and we get really, really caught in them, we get stuck in them, right? So we all know that we've been repeating these habits, and that's why we feel very ashamed of ourselves in many ways, because you can only keep doing the same pattern so many times until you start to really feel like kind of like bored, or then you just start to feel very dissatisfied, and then it just begins to feel very, very, you're ashamed of it, right? Because you're not growing, and people know you're not growing, and you know you're not growing, and it's kind of, it feels almost like an embarrassing, like, man, I'm not growing, I keep repeating the same kind of thing, that the same cycle, that really this cycle is not getting me anywhere, right? And that's the quiet, I'm ashamed of myself for dating this guy, or I'm ashamed of myself for allowing this to go on for so long, or I'm ashamed that I allowed this person to take advantage of me and use me for their own, agenda, right? I feel embarrassed, I feel ashamed, I'm shameful. Really, it's like that we are in the same repeat. We're repeating the same thing of our parents and the grandparents, and what society and all these beliefs and these judgments, and we're in a cycle with it, and we're really, while in that cycle, we're realizing this is not going anywhere, right? Which is like we're not going anywhere. We're not leveling up. A cycle is just a cycle. It's you never level up until you level up, right? And that's why we worked on this Saturn energy, because Saturn really is the boss figure, and Saturn teachers are rough. Right, if you have a Saturn teacher in this yogic practice, it's rough, right? In some of these places, these Saturn teachers are rough, right? And it's rough what's demanded of you, right? What's demanded of you to hold these postures and to have these kriyas and these meditations that are not easy on your psyche. It's not easy on your mind. Sometimes you're like, whoa, like this is way too much. Right, it's way too much, but that Saturn teacher says you have to do it, right? It's almost like you have to have the devotion, you have to have the dedication, right? You have to whip yourself in shape, you have to level up, because if you don't level up, you're just going to be in the same cycle. And then you're going to feel the same shame, and you're going to feel embarrassed, and you're going to feel ashamed that you're the same person you were a decade ago. And that's going to be the great sort of being fooled and feeling foolish and feeling that you've tricked yourself out of, you cheated yourself out of your own victory, right? And we feel, man, I cheated myself by settling for that. I keep doing that same cycle that's not getting me anywhere in love and career and sex and money, whatever it is, right? So the Saturn teacher is that kind of like, let's level off, let's take accountability and responsibility and ownership for our evolution, right? And by doing so, we become more mature, right? And maturity isn't this old man with a cane just sitting there staring at the wall and he's mature, right? The mature man is usually some old dude or something, right? Who's just staring at the wall, having accomplished so much, right? But just sitting there staring at the wall, right? Maturity is taking charge of the amount of victory you want to have in this life, right? It's that's what it is. It's taking charge of the amount of victory you want to have in this life. And charge is like charging up. I think of charge like a charge, right? There's something like electricity, right? A charge. And to charge, you right, be in charge of the amount of victory you want to have in your life means you got to charge your system. You got to charge your body. You got to give energy to yourself. That's what a charge is. It ignites something inside of you. And that's what maturity is. You ignite something inside of you that gives you more energy. And all of a sudden with that more energy, you're charged up. All of a sudden you can make new choices. But when you're drained, when you're feeling, old and tired and worn down, you don't have any energy to make new choices. You're kind of stuck. And a lot of people you'll see out there, they're just stuck. They have no energy. They've gotten themselves in a hole, right? They keep repeating the same cycle. What happened is they literally created a sort of a home with no doors or windows. Now all of a sudden they got all these kids, and they got a partner that here comes and goes, and they have this seed of thought, I would like to have a victory. But since they don't have the charge, they can't do it, and then they're feeling bound. They're feeling bound with all these kids and a partner that comes and goes, and they don't have the charge to be able to break through and create a window and create a door to get out, right? So in that cycle, we're feeling shame because when we do ignite, which life will sting you, will bite you, will bark at you. That's what the Saturn teacher is. I'll sting you, I'll bite you, I'll bark at you, I'll yell at you until you get the hell up out of whatever thing you're doing, right? So you can really sort of awake, right, kind of thing. And when a lot of people awake and when they ignite, they're like, man, why was I just doing these things? Like, why was I not paying attention? Like, why did I allow myself to get all this student loan, and now what, I'm $75,000 in debt? Like, why? It's like, when we kind of pay attention, we start to realize like there is a better way that doesn't require us to drain ourselves into holes and to create these sort of these extra sort of ties, right? So really I like this Kriya because it is about deconstructing these habits we have of suffering. And a part of the habit that we've gotten from the Piscean age and the patriarch is that really we have this programming, these beliefs that we have to create extra suffering. So now we all have like the challenge, but then we add more challenge by allowing ourselves to keep the cycle running. And if we know that cycle hasn't gone anywhere from our mother, for our grandmother, and we can just feel there is this like atrophy of victory going on, or this atrophy of energy, or atrophy of just fulfillment, we know that cycle didn't work. And whatever was whoever was indulging in that, there's a great sort of shame. And usually with shame there's blame, meaning I blame my dad or I blame whatever. And usually with shame there's neglect, meaning there's tends to be like an avoidance, like you don't like beat around the bush kind of thing. And when there's shame, there's this sort of inability to believe in yourself. And when there's this shame, there's this great sort of disrespect for yourself or for what you need to do to improve, right? So this Kriya and this meditation, it's wonderful for getting your self-respect, because in order to get anywhere, you do have to respect what you're doing. And if you don't respect what you're doing, why are you doing it, right? if you know that's not getting you self-respect, being in this, in why you're doing it, right? And the self-respect, just like the great executive mind, it's like you pay attention to everything, every sound, every whisper, everything. And that's why executive mind is able to oversee multiple things simultaneously, is because they know how to pay attention so finely. They can just sniff and they can sense something's off, let me correct it, right? Or they can just tell by an employee's aura that there's something there's something that needs to be improved in an area of that person, right? And that's an ability to really pay attention to the fine detail. And when we pay the attention to the fine detail with our own lives, we can start to really unlock things and begin to really move beyond these sort of genetic patterning that really, I mean, we don't need to repeat, and it's not necessary to repeat. We keep thinking it's necessary, like we have to keep the suffering going, or we'll forget, or we won't be deserving of our prosperity, or without suffering, what is life, right? What is bliss without suffering? Like, we think we have all these beliefs that we have to keep the pattern running. But in deconstructing and connecting with a higher civilization, you call it like a fifth dimensional reality, right? Lemuria, Atlantis, ancient Egypt, these very, very high intelligent, high creative civilizations that were very healthy. Their spirituality was very lucrative, very prosperous, and the leaders of the game, the teachers of the game, were actually the wealthy, noble ones, right? It wasn't wealthy people were these con artists, and then the noble people were these poor people, right? It was not like that. So in deconstructing that, just focusing on the Saturn, focusing on the Jupiter, vibrating into a higher dimension, going into a civilization that is on Earth that has a sort of wealthy nobility kind of pattern in the genetics, we are able to really perceive beyond and really open up and really expand our ideas, and to start to understand that what this planet demands for us, not more technology, because we're not ready. We don't even understand what we're doing right now, right? More technology is just more opportunities for, warlike behavior, right? It's more so demand on this planet is for spiritual growth. That's the demand, because this technology won't go anywhere, right? The cars we have won't go anywhere. The buildings we have won't go anywhere, right? Our educational system won't go anywhere. This whole political, this is sort of state won't go anywhere without the spiritual growth of the people. So that's why we go to the civilizations, to be inspired by the civilization of a higher creativity, so that we can begin to understand that we're not set in the shame of our past. We don't have to live in the shame of our past. We don't have to live in the shame of our mother, our father, our grandparents, grandmother, whatever it is that makes a person feel embarrassed, or makes a person feel low or disrespected or disrespectful. It makes a person feel angry because they were in a cyclical cycle that never ended for them, and never ended for their kids, and never ended for their parents, right? And then feeling really rageful about that we're still carrying the same kind of thing, and we're still the same kind of person that we were and have always been, and we don't really feel very content with that, because we know the demand on this planet isn't the victory of how much attention, or how much how much I can conquer, and how much I can proclaim and preach. And it's more so, how much spiritual growth can I have? That's the victory. How much spiritual growth can I have in this single life? Because with that spiritual growth, it really means that you are changing the genetic patterning of you, and the many, ancestors of you, right? The family of you. And what the great sort of satisfaction with that is that when you begin to vibrate higher, and you begin to connect with the higher dimensional realities on Earth, and more of Jupiter and prosperity and Saturn discipline, right? You just start to feel more capable. And a lot of people, they just feel competent. Like, I'm just competent. Meaning I just accept it, like kind of like a nasty, like, I just accept it, But we want to feel not just competent, right? That, I can, just do it, whatever you want me to do, I'll just do it. We want to feel really extraordinary and capable. We want to feel capable of prosperity, right? But again, it's charge. You have to level up, and you have to be in charge of the amount of victory you want in this life. And meaning charge is like an electrical current. And the more the electric you become, the more energy you are exalting, right, in your victory. And therefore the more victory you can have, because you have a lot of energy to do it. You're not, and that's the thing, we so quickly put ourselves in these houses with no doors or windows, with kids and with people that we're not sure of, but we just got tied to because we got bored, or we lost our concentration, and we felt, fooled, and we were in a cycle that brought shame and that we didn't know how to get out of, and we didn't take ownership, all these kinds of things. And that's a part of the pattern of this earth, right? Is just become earthbound. Just become earthbound. When you don't know what else to do, just be earthbound, right? And bound means like a house with no doors or windows, where there really is no wiggle room to move and to be moved and to change and to have a different version of yourself come through, right? So everything about this new age, you see all these people, they're about expansion, they're about travel, and they're voyagers, and they're pioneers, and they're artists, and they're creatives, and they don't have homesteads. A lot of them, they have kids. The kids, they're on the venture with them, right? If they have husbands and wives, the husbands and wives are very much in alignment, and they're expanding with them, like they're on a journey. Right? A lot of these people who are trying to deconstruct this old genetic patterning of suffering in silence, or just be earthbound and call that a life, a lot of them are breaking that. They're saying, hell no, I'm not just going to be earthbound. I'm going to be here on this earth, but I'm going to understand that I'm here to bring ascension to my life on earth, not to get stuck in it and trapped in the dogma of it, and then just feel really, really kind of confused by the time I'm 58, right? I want to be on the earth. I want to be grounded on the earth, meaning I want to have my head on straight. I don't want to be whirling around and I'm a sinner and we're all going to hell kind of stuff, right? I want to be grounded on the earth, not bound to my religion or bound to my family, or just tied up and stuck and in a rut with all these doctrines and belief systems and all this warlike behavior and just the repeating of the same thing, the tradition that in the eyes of science is out of date, and therefore I'm out of date, and therefore I'm old. I don't want to be old, right? I want to be on the ground, on earth, grounded. In the way that I can see the tradition, I can see the science, I can see the old versions of me and the cycles, but I also can see the future versions of me and the patterns that bring me to the future version of me, where I'm not, vibrating at the status of my mommy, daddy, grandma, grandpa, and their way of perceiving life. I'm vibrating at a version of human that belongs to a civilization there's of a higher dimension, and somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do it, right? And the ones that are going to do it, usually the ones who are super charged up, because they have a technology, they have a tool, meditation, a Kriya that charges them up to have immense victory, because the pathway from the old to the new is not easy, it's vigorous, right? A pathway from a particular genetic kind of fixation, right, or genetic way of existing on this earth, right, a kind of a belief, right, it's really, really heavy, and that everybody's, drinking from the Kool-Aid. It's really hard. It takes a lot of being charged up, leveling up to cross that bridge, right, and to begin to feel that livelihood that we all have in these civilizations on earth, Mary, Atlantis, ancient Egypt, even in the future of earth, we can say, where we as human beings are not just competent, right, we're very capable. It's a different word, capable of moving the energy and moving the energy and moving the energy and feeling quite lucky, right? Very, very lucky and fortunate, right? We don't use those words lucky and fortunate. We use a lot of like I'm stuck and I'm stuck in here, and then I'm stuck with my parents and stuck in this house and this relationship with these kids. We use a lot of that, but we don't really use and vibrate out to the cosmos lucky and fortunate. Because let's be honest, our genetic past has not really felt very lucky or fortunate, right? Even the wealthy status, the wealthy individuals have felt very, very, sort of not so fulfilled. Like, for example, my great grandfather came from a very wealthy sort of German lineage, right? His parents were very wealthy, but the thing is, the great misfortune in his life is that his wife wanted to be creative. She wanted to be an actress. She wanted to go to New York, but she didn't. She didn't do that. She didn't pursue her dreams, and what happened is she became an alcoholic. And the mother being an alcoholic, my grandmother had to be in that, and that affected her. And the way that didn't rub her off in the right way, and the misfortune of that whole wealthy man is that really there wasn't wealth. There really wasn't wealth. Right? So it's like the wealth is deeper. Wealth is not just about maintaining this sort of legacy of men where they have wealth going down the line, but then the wealth just disappears all of a sudden. Right? Really, it's finding that wealth in the human being, because my great grandfather, he didn't even know. I don't even think he knew that his wife was unfulfilled. I'm sure he wouldn't even pay attention. He didn't even pay attention. Right? And she became, kind of not so good, right? Unhappy and agitated and bitter, right? Because she wanted to be better. But the shame of it is she felt she was trapped and stuck, right? In some part of herself, she felt stuck. And then when you feel stuck long enough in a door with no windows and alcohol, with no windows or doors, you just want to self-destruct because you want to get out. And if you don't know how to get out, a lot of people, when they're in a house with no windows or doors and they want to get out, what happens is the only way to get out is people self-destruct. They basically try to kill themselves, right? We all have that in us where we get ourselves stuck. And stuck is not wealth. No matter what, a woman can be married to a wealthy husband, but if she's stuck in her own life, in her own misfortune, that affects everybody, right? It affects everybody. So let us understand that wealth is more than just a resource, right? Like, again, we need wealth, we need, resources, right? We need, the Wall Street kind of, benefactor, right? Kind of thing. But we also need the wealth of our own sort of energy and our paying it, to be able to pay attention, right? And to be able to follow through and to be intuitive and to be creative, right? So that our wealth doesn't just disappear because we were not paying attention, right? We weren't seeing clearly. Right? We didn't understand that the cycle and the pattern and the way we were relating to our wealth was actually not expansive. And therefore, whatever is not expansive, really, wealth just becomes stagnant, or it just falls off. Right? So, I'm going to leave you guys with these thoughts, and thank you. Namaste.